So your friends and your coworkers and your uncle have been begging you to play fantasy football, and this year you're like, fine, fuck it, I'll play. How do I play fantasy football? This podcast is for you.
And now, how to dominate fantasy football.
So you decided to play fantasy football. Cool. You're gonna have a lot of fun. It's easy. It doesn't take up a lot of time. You don't have to watch all the games. You don't have to watch any games. I'm gonna show you how to do the one thing you gotta do, and that is to set your roster every week.
What is fantasy football?
I'm gonna show you what it's about using gifts. You, your friends, and your coworkers and your uncle are gonna get together and pick players from the NFL to form your own teams. When those players actually do things in the game, like scoring or even catching a pass, they earn fantasy points. Every week, your fantasy team will play against someone in your league's fantasy team, and whoever has the most points wins. That's basically it. Your league will do this until it works its way through playoffs and even a Super Bowl. Winning is always about bragging rights, but sometimes there's money involved.
What's going to happen?
First thing you're gonna do is you're gonna join a league, which will most likely be on a website. If your friends are like, we run our league on an Excel sheet, run. You know who's running their league on an Excel sheet? Cheaters. There's Yahoo, ESPN, Flea Flicker, and a whole host of other ones, including, of course, the NFL. Your commissioner, the person who's running the whole thing, will tell you where your league is and how to sign up. Once you sign up, you'll need to name your team. It's tradition to name it something special or cute. I'm going with this. This is your roster. Right now, it's empty because you got to do a draft, fill it up, and I'm going to talk about drafts, but not in this video. I'm going to do a whole video talking about drafts. Now, if you look over here, you'll see these little initials. These are the positions that you'll have to fill. QB, that's the quarterback. He's the guy who throws the ball. RB is the running back. He's the guy who runs the ball. WR, wide receiver. It's the guy who catches the ball. TE, that's the tight end. He blocks and sometimes catches the ball. K is for kicker, who kicks the ball, clearly. DST is defense and special teams. This includes the whole defensive team, and they get points for interceptions and fumbles and stuff like that. Okay, now look at this little mofo right here, RBWRTE. This is called a flex slot. That means that you can play any player from any one of these positions in this slot. Sometimes the flex slot is RBWR, sometimes it's WRTE, sometimes there's even a QB RBWRTE. That's called a super flex or omniflex. I like flex spots. They let you strategize. But some people just want their fantasy football to be straight up fantasy football. So they play in what's called a standard league. Standard means there's no flex positions or there's no PPR, or maybe no flex or PPR. PPR means points per reception. These type of leagues allow for 1 point for every catch. It's also available in the half-point variety. There's a whole bunch of leagues. There are IDPs, which are leagues that have individual defensive player positions. There are keeper leagues, where you keep one or more players from year to year. And there are dynasty leagues, where you can keep all of your players from year to year. So yeah, there's a lot of different types of leagues, but there's only one thing you really need to do to dominate. And that's set your roster. I want to play fantasy football. I don't have time to be filling out my roster yet. Dude, it doesn't take that long to set a roster. If you got time to make a tweet or share some post on Facebook, that's the amount of time it takes. And you do it once, twice a week. It's cake and ice cream. Don't sweat it, man. Quit bullshit. This is what your roster looks like when it's filled up, right? All the positions you see have players in them. Now, every league will have something similar to this, where you just roll over and it's like there's little news bits about each player. And then over here, you'll see injury notices. So Melvin Gordon's going to be out. Cam Newton is questionable. So every week you'll come in, you'll see that, and you'll be like, oh, I need to switch Melvin Gordon out. So you'll come over here, put him on the bench, roll down here, and find another RB to fill his spot. You go here, RB, and hit save lineup. Boom. There you go. Now I got Chris Carson playing. Carson practiced fully. He's going to play. So he's good to go. All right, we got Cam Newton here. Cam Newton's questionable. Do I want to play him? I'm going to go with not taking the risk. So bench. Go to my bench. Dak Prescott's on the bench. I'll put him in. QB. Hit save lineup. Boom. That's it. Okay, there are two other ways, real quick, to get players on your team. Number one, this is the player pool or the waiver wire. Now, whenever you have a player that is injured or during the bye weeks, you will have to replace them, most likely with someone from your bench, but you might have to dip into the player pool or waiver wire every now and again. Once a game starts, a player is locked. In this case, Cam Newton. On Sunday at 1 p.m. of the first week of football, Cam Newton will be locked in this position if I have him here. Wherever he is, if I have him in my lineup, he'll be locked there. Or if he's on the bench, he'll be locked there. It's the same with the player pool. For each of your players, you can switch them out, put them on the bench, put them in your lineup, cut them, do whatever. You can do that all the way up until their game starts, and then they get locked. Some leagues, even 5 minutes before their game starts, they'll be locked, right? So the players become unlocked on what we call Waiver Wednesday. That's when the waiver wires open up. Some leagues, they don't open up till Thursday, but typically it's on Wednesday. And what will happen is you will put your bid in for a player. So let's say it's Sunday night and I need a new running back for next week because one of my running backs got hurt and I want David Montgomery. I would put Sunday night or Monday night or wherever, it doesn't matter, as long as it's before Tuesday night, I will put in a request to pick up that player, right? And then according to your league rules, you will get that player that on Wednesday morning, depending on your league rules. Some leagues will give the player to the team that is worse. So if your team is ranked last, you'll definitely get that player. But if your team is ranked first, most likely someone else will get it if they've put in for him. Does that make sense? Some leagues, you actually put in a bid, and whoever has the highest bid gets the player. And in other leagues, it's based on whoever used the player pool last. So if you've recently pulled a player from the player pool and then you want to get another one, you have to wait until people who have put in orders that haven't used it as much as you get their pick first. So that's one way to get a player on your team. The other way is trades. You could propose a new trade. You could trade with other managers, players, and even picks. Now, when you go to make a trade, most leagues will have it. I hesitate to say all. Most leagues will have a waiting period. Usually it's like 24 hours before the trade goes through. And everybody will get a chance to veto that trade if it's a crazy trade. This is so that there's no collusion, so that people aren't working with other teams. So you're not playing against two teams, meaning, your friend and your uncle are working together to make sure your uncle wins, and then they split the money if there's money involved. I'm not saying you're gambling. That's why there's a waiting period. So trading is another way to get good players on your team. Like I said earlier,
you don't have to watch all the games. You don't have to watch any games.
And that's true. You don't have to watch the games, but you will have a lot of fun watching the games, knowing these guys are scoring for you. That's the fun of fantasy football. That's the fun part. So you really don't want to miss out on that. Speaking of which, let me show you what the score looks like. Oh, I lost week 1, so let's not look at that. Let's look at week 2. Boom. All right, so this is what the score box looks like. Again, it's going to look different from if you don't use Flea Flicker. It's going to look different, but essentially it's going to be the same. You look in here. These are the scoreboards, and this is my team, the Avengers versus Arc Reactors. You'll see how the points are scored for each one of my players. Cam Newton got 3 touchdowns and 335 yards that day. So he earned 37 points in this league. Every league scores differently. And I'm going to talk about the value of different players in the draft video. Here we're just learning how to play. So Melvin Gordon had 3 touchdowns and 6 receptions for 66 yards. So he got 31 points in this league. Melvin Gordon blew it the fuck up that day. So that's how it works. All of these are tallied up, and that gets you your score. and then the winner, in this case me, gets a W by their names, and it just tallies up until you go to the playoffs. And so that's it. That's how you play fantasy football. So welcome aboard. Be sure to check out the draft video. There's probably a link for it somewhere down there. And until next time, good luck and good football.